Hello everybody, welcome to Hadley's Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some plain old parsnips jazzed up into a puree. So let's get started. First I have here just some basic parsnips. They're a member of the carrot family and tend to have a very similar sweet flavor but also have a little bit of nuttiness. You just want to go ahead and get these washed and then get your potato peeler ready. So I'm going to take my potato peeler and just begin by going the lengthwise down the parsnip. You want to go from the large end to the small end. I'm just going to go ahead and get these peeled up. They smell really fresh. They smell very similar to a carrot. And you can always save your extra vegetable rinds like this, or if you do have carrot or onion or pretty much anything else, and you can save that in a freezer bag and then make stock later on, make vegetable stock. I'm going to go ahead and chop off the small end on each one. And then here on the root, I'm going to clean that up a little bit with my potato peeler because I want to save more of that. Up here. So from here I'm just going to cut firmly. Keep your fingers back. One clean chop. Clean chop. Now I'm just going to chop this into discs. I want to roughly all about the same of that thickness. I'm aiming for this right now. Make sure you always have a good grip on whatever you're peeling and that your fingers are out of the way. Great, so now I've got that. So now with these larger discs, I'm going to stack them about, we'll do 3 at a time. And as I was just talking about size, most of my smaller pieces are about this big. So I'm going to need to chop these down to about the same size. I'm going to start with I'm just going to quarter them, I think. Yeah, that should be, yeah. So I have these all roughly the same size, and on my stove I already have a pot of water. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on high. Get my salt here. I'm going to take a good couple pinches. I use coarse ground kosher salt. That's just my personal preference. It's a little bit make sure to go through and look and just see, maybe there's one that's table salt. A little bit bigger than the rest. Awesome little. Doesn't really need to be quartered, but maybe just. So now I've got all of my salt dissolved in the water. I tell you what, if you haven't invested in one of these, they have these at the dollar store at the Dollar Tree. This is one of my most useful kitchen utensils, and it was only $1. And I use it every single time. Because it's a lot better to use a food scraper than it is to use the edge of your knife, even if you're using the blunt edge. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these in with my water. Give this a stir. Now something else I also like to add, if I've got it on hand, which I always do, is a garlic clove. Oh, got a runaway garlic clove. Just like Julia Child.
So I've gone ahead and cleared off my board.
5-second rule.
And what I've got here is about a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic.
Crush that with the side of my knife like this.
My parsnips have yet to come to a boil.
And that allows
I went ahead and used jarred minced garlic, and I know that's blasphemous in many regions.
I don't want it too small because I actually intend
But once I started cooking for large quantities of people, I found out that was really the easiest way, and the flavor profile isn't that much different than fresh garlic. And I'm going to let these boil. And what I'm going to do with this garlic is I'm going to make what's called a garlic paste.
5 minutes.
So you do need to be careful. You're going to have your large knife, and we're going to take this, and I'm actually going to divide this in half. So I'm going to take the side of my knife and press the garlic into my cutting board just a little bit at first. Kind of get a thin layer. I'm not pushing real hard. And then I'm going to take some salt, and I'll give an aerial view of this as well. I'm going to give just a teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle that over, not even a teaspoon, really, that was more of a pinch. I'm going to grind that salt into my garlic, right? And what the salt actually does is it acts as an abrasive and creates a paste. The reason I'm doing this is because at least I have fresh garlic. I'm not using powdered garlic today. And I want this to dissolve pretty well into my parsnip puree. So rather than someone biting in and getting a large piece of garlic, which isn't always a bad thing, but might very well be a surprise. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep mashing this, and then I'll show an aerial view here in a minute. Here's the small portion, yeah. Here we go. So I can do it with the small portion with one hand. You're literally just mashing the garlic into your board with that salt. I'm going to redistribute, mash, and keep doing this. It'll take 3 or 4 passes. Alright, so my parsnips are now done. I'll go ahead and turn that off. What I had done is I popped one out, and just as before, I had split it on the cutting board, cut right in half with the fork, no problem, no pressure. And at the same time, I've also got a cast iron skillet. Now, if you don't have a cast iron skillet, I would recommend that you mash them before we do the next step in a bowl. But I'm just going to go ahead and strain them. Now, my cast iron is pretty much greased at all times by nature. But I am going to go ahead and grab, for this dish I'm going to use Kerrygold butter, but you can use really anything that you are comfortable with. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that from the fridge. Alright, I got my Kerrygold here. I'm going to add, I'd say that's a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of butter. Go ahead and grab these into the skillet they go. Again, not as graceful with one hand as I would be with 2. And I'm just going to give this a light browning. And in the meantime, I'm going to grab some herbs from my cupboard. So for tonight, I'm going to be using herb de Provence. If you do not have this, that's fine. Any sort of thyme would do. If you have thyme, I mean, we all are lacking thyme. Or, you know, even maybe a basil or an oregano. But those are pretty strong, so, but they are components of herb de Provence, which is technically rosemary, marjoram, thyme, savory, and sage. But if anything, just go for thyme. Now, because these are starch, oh wow, I can really smell, they're very sweet on their own. They smell very good already. Because they are starch, try not to move them too much. And then what you'll get is actually a nice caramelization on the outer crust of the parsnip. And you could serve these just as they are. You don't have to mash them. But I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic paste. Get that working. Looks gorgeous. You don't want to crowd them too much because if you do, they're never going to caramelize. Now my herb de Provence. I like just all everywhere, and partially too is because it's going to absorb a little bit of that butter that's in the bottom of this pan and really get working. And this really is an extra step. If you were in a rush, you could have easily just boiled them, put them in a bowl, mash them up with your potato masher, your whisk, or egg beater, whatever you want to use, and add some butter and cream and these herbs, and you'd be good to go. And a little bit of garlic powder in that case, because it's the cooking here that's going to bring that garlic down a little bit. Okay, so these are looking kind of dry, which is good. That means they've absorbed the butter in the pan. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to grab a little bit of half and half from the fridge. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and moved my cooked parsnip to this bowl. You can see that's browned up quite nicely with the herbs and the butter. And I'm going to take my potato masher and just start mashing exactly that. Okay, now I'm going to add just a skosh of half and half in here. So now I have a pretty thick mass, you could say. Right, so this is the consistency I'm looking for. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a taste now as well. It is good. I'm gonna add a little bit more, can you believe it? Butter. I can believe this is butter. How funny. A little bit more butter, a true pinch of salt, and some good big grinds of black pepper. Finally, pepper has made it to the show. And a side note on that pepper grinder, I got it at Walmart. It's a refillable pepper grinder. And then I buy my peppercorns at Costco. Best $5 I had ever really spent. So once again, here's that consistency. Make sure you're always tasting as you go. I think that's ready. Yep. All right, I'll get this plated up. Granted, this is just a side dish, but it's something fun. And we'll be right back. So here we are with our parsnip puree with herb de Provence. Let's go ahead and see here. Go ahead and just grab a little bit. It still has a little bit of the parsnip body in pieces and parts, which is really good. So if you're a person who enjoys their mashed potatoes with just a little bit more body, I guess, this is a dish for you. Because again, the center of those parsnips are really hard to cook through. But in this case, it worked out really well. It has definitely some caramelization and those sweeter tones from the parsnip and having been cooked with butter in the cast iron skillet. So if you don't have one of those, I do recommend them. I use mine for everything, literally everything. Once it's seasoned and greased through, it is non-stick. I cook my eggs in it, no problem. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this very first video of Hadley's Kitchen, and until next time, enjoy your creations.